watch the restream. I'm here broadcasting or whatever, streaming from Denver, Colorado, which is kind of crazy. But here we are. We said we try to keep doing the Daily Dose, and I will keep trying to do it. So hello there, Juniper. Juniper, yep. I thought I said Jupiter for a second. I'll let you guys kind of pile in for a second before we start chatting. Hey, guys. Niagara Falls. Nice. Very nice. All right. Hey there. So, hey now. Good evening, everybody. Again, this is my first on the road stream we have tried. So we're trying to keep up with these daily little sessions. Hi there, Breach. So you guys are all coming in. I don't have my usual theme music, unfortunately. Portugal. Wow, Chris, what are you doing in Portugal? That's crazy. And where in Portugal are you? Ozarks, Missouri. Very interesting. Fascinated with that since the TV show, of course. You live, Patrick? You live too? Panorama City. Very, very exciting, Panorama City. Thank you, Tony. Letting you guys come on in. So I am tonight, Lisbon. Fantastic. That's got to be beautiful there. Yes, I was talking about SB 640 in Sacramento. Thank you for bringing that up. Now it's going to look a little weird here because my camera's up here and I got to watch the restream down there. So I apologize if it looks like I'm looking somewhere other than where I should be. Sounds good, does it? Good, fantastic. The topic tonight, you guys said it. What do you want to talk about? I'm in Denver, and we're in the middle of a snowstorm. It was the strangest damn thing. It was 75 degrees yesterday when I got here, and it is 20 degrees, maybe colder, like it may be like 10 degrees, and it is almost blizzarding. Hang on a second. I'm telling Mrs. Pinsky, who seems to come in on all these shows, she's texting me, so I'm telling her I'm streaming right now. Hysterical. Louisville, Sherman Oaks. You want to talk about depression and anxiety? That's what you want to get into? Side effects of SSRIs. I'm happy to talk about that. Maybe you want to ask about specific questions about that. I'm happy to do so. Relationships. Again, I need your specific questions, and that may trigger me to get into some stuff. Homelessness, let's not talk about because I talk about that everywhere. Thank you, Christina, on The Masked Singer. That was kind of crazy. And they're on to a new season already, and it's looking good. Yeah, Colorado, it was 75 degrees yesterday when I got here. Now, I was going to check the temperature. The temperature now is, let's get into the right thing here. Come on. 19 degrees. 19 degrees with 60% snow, and it was just kind of falling hard a few minutes ago. I stupid Southern Californian, ran across the street today. I lived in New England for a while, so I know ice and snow a bit, but it's been a long time since I've been in it. And I was thinking, oh, it's cold. It could be icy here, but I didn't feel any ice. I didn't see anything. And as I was running across the street, I aimed for some salt and sand because I thought, well, it's not going to be icy there. Boilerplate, feet completely up, complete spread eagle on my back. My glasses flew across the street and bashed my head in, back of my head, and things seemed to be okay, but good times. Panic attacks are horrible. Any suggestions? I have a great book for you on panic disorders. Let me get it right now. I think it's a guy named McDonough that does it. Hold on one second. I will get it for you. But it's really dealing with panic for many people. It really is about leaning in. Leaning in. The book is called Dare, A New Way to End Anxiety and Panic Attacks by Barry McDonagh, McDonagh. Okay? Now, I had panic attacks when I was a young person, and they were horrible. And the way I felt I got over them was sort of like mastering them, like I got used to them and managed them. So this idea of leaning into them, to me, has great currency. So it's called Dare, A New Way to End A New Way to End Anxiety and Panic Attacks by Barry McDonagh, McDonagh. Oh my goodness, you guys are sending me some long notes here, and I'm not as able to scroll. Oh, there we go. How to recover from a severely abusive marriage. Listen, I would do therapy for sure because that's highly traumatic. Struggling to move on for sure. I mean, of course you would struggle. Look at what's going on with your sort of how you are attracted to relationships, how you form relationships, and then how you deal with the trauma of that being in that cycle of abuse. It's highly traumatizing, and it's a chronic trauma too because you're constantly in that cycle of abuse. If you guys don't know what the cycle of abuse is, it's somebody becomes abusive, then they afterwards they apologize. It's because I love you so much. I'm sorry. And then things are better for a while, and then there's a little bit of walking on eggshells as things start to escalate again, and then it repeats itself. That is the way. That's the cycle of abuse. Everybody see the game yesterday, by the way? Talk about teens with depression, anxiety, especially those with diagnosis of all three. Well, depression, anxiety, panic kind of go together oftentimes. That's what I had in my teen years, 19. And my depression was manifesting with anxiety, and then the anxiety broke into panic. So it's getting it treated. I wish I'd been on the right medicines. I was grossly mistreated. And I think that it's part of the reason I got into mental health treatment, because, especially youth mental health, because there was nobody for me back then. Nobody that sort of really looked at that particular age group. And it was just ridiculous. And so I sort of paid attention to young people ever since, because microdosing psilocybin, again, we did a 2-hour special on hallucinogens and trauma and therapy. You can check that out. It's on the website. Okay, I'm going to go through your stuff here. Oops. Now, relationships really limited if you're in the market in 68. Need high energy man to keep up with me. Well, good for you, Alice. You should feel good about that. If you're at 68 and have that kind of energy, that's awesome. I love that. Don't feel bad about that. I have an, okay, Carnifex, whatever. Do I suspect the number of people affected with coronavirus is being underreported? Absolutely. I think not underreported, but you got to think about it. When it comes to the coronavirus, hold on, I'm going to put you guys on hold for a second. When it comes to coronavirus, we only test people that are severely ill, right? So if somebody's getting a severe look of pneumonia or a bad bronchitis, we test them. Somebody who has a mild upper respiratory infection, we don't test. So my prediction is that it's going to be much more widespread. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of cases that are mild and a very small percentage of those overall cases that end up serious. That's my prediction. So there you go. And most of what we're dealing with the coronavirus is not fake news so much as press-generated hysteria. They should be ashamed of themselves. You're much more likely to die of the flu. Much more likely. Yes, this is really me. Big Jewel, that's your name. Okay, so I'm scrolling through some more of your stuff now to see if I can find some interesting things to talk about. I apologize. I've got my computer sort of jacked up here on a ledge. Do I think NAD is helpful with addiction? I take True Niagen, and I think NAD is helpful in infusions for withdrawal. But again, more to be revealed on that. Oh my goodness. Light chain deposition disease, of course, I've heard of. I've never treated it. It's a plasma cell disorder, right? And so the plasma cells are producing these light chain proteins that get laid down in the kidney and the brain and all over the place. I do not know of it having any genetic link to it. It's sort of a myeloma-like disease. Well, it's myeloma. And so I don't think myeloma has a real genetic link to it. Multiple myeloma is a very tough disease, but we're doing better. We're doing better with all the, particularly the hematologic malignancies. I've told people if I were in training today as a resident, I would go into oncology. It's very exciting what's happening there. Do I think addicts in recovery should be able to deal with jaded doctors? How they should deal with jaded doctors? Well, what do you mean by that? Tell me about the jaded doctor question. That's an interesting question. How should people in recovery deal with jaded doctors? If you're dealing with jaded doctors, you're relying too much on doctors, and you should be relying on your recovering peers. That's my basic sense of what that is about, but I'd love to hear more about it. Severe heartburn sufferers, what else can we take in addition to omeprazole? You can take, Gaviscon, but you really need to find out. You may need something to tighten the gastroesophageal junction. I don't know what's going on there with that for you. You love sober rehab, and no, there was a conversation surrounding it. I'm not sure what you're asking again, Jillian or Jillian. Please tell me, because now people are beginning to understand that we had our opiate addicts in that group, and they were deadly. They were in a deadly situation, and they were all killed by my peers. They were all, after we treated them for a long period of time after celebrity rehab, they went to other doctors, got opiates, died. That's what happened. And that was what was happening back in those days. Did I see Demi Lovato sing at the Grammys? Wait, I did. She seems like she's truly in recovery. What are your thoughts? I think Demi Lovato is an extraordinary person. I believe she's going to be very impactful on other people. Look, she's a human being with a bad condition. She may slip around. Things may happen to her. That's the nature of having those diseases. But I'm telling you, that's an important woman, and that's somebody with a lot to offer other people. Do not underestimate her impact and what she has to offer. I really have strong feelings about her potential. I don't mean just in recovery. I mean to really help other people. Carnivore update. It's doing good. I just feel great when I do that. In fact, I'm up here in Colorado right now, and last time I was here, I felt like hell. And that was probably about 6-7 years ago. Last time I was in Denver, and the altitude really bothered me. I don't feel it at all, and I was wondering if it is the carnivore diet or the at least the ketosis I'm sort of in. That would be interesting. Neurofibromatosis type 1. I mean, I know that's the milder version. We're talking about people know that neurofibromatosis is the elephant man disease, but there's many, many different types. And the NF1, as far as I know, is a milder version. I've treated a few people with it, and the problems we used to get into were the neurofibromas impinging on the spinal cord. That's where things got kind of, okay. Thank you, Jason. You were on. I'd love to hear what that story was like being on the set and back with me and Adam on Loveline and MTV. Those were crazy times. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We just followed directions back then. We didn't know anything about creating television. I don't know what that Koran, Fox, what you're talking about there, Koran. Maybe I got your name wrong. That's what you're saying. I see. Sorry, the things scroll by really fast, and I try to catch the names. Did I hear her song? Wait a minute. She what? She confided in alcohol, cries out to the stars. She's an amazing breath of fresh air. That, Monique, is correct. That's what she is. And again, a substantial person with a lot to offer. I hope she does well with her condition, just like anybody else who's struggling with it. I hope they do well. But it's challenging. Where can I find out about my diet? World Carnivore Tribe, those guys on Facebook, World Carnivore Tribe, seem to be taking this very seriously, as well as Vinny Tortorich. Follow Vinny Tortorich on Twitter. Sort of invented all this stuff long before everybody else got here. Okay, can I go on Rogan? If he would have me, I am a big Joe Rogan fan. I would love to be on that show. Why don't you guys see what you can do with that? What's the difference between PTSD, hyperarousal, and mania? You can tell me. Well, they can kind of blend together, can't they? So ultimately, basically, PTSD is hyperarousal, right? It's your central nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, always in a state of readiness and hyperarousal because of trauma, typically. Sometimes reactivated by a second trauma in adulthood. Usually, a childhood trauma is what sets it all up. And and the PTSD is a state of hyperarousal. Now, the symptoms associated with PTSD can be a little more protean than just hyperarousal. Okay, thank you, Sanjay. Let's get Vinny this week on this. You want Vinny on this? Maybe we'll get him on the streaming show we do on Sundays. Okay, Okay, Beth says her family hates when she talks about recovery on social media. I think it's important. Whoops, she scrolled by. Because I know it will help someone, but why would it bother them? Beth, listen really carefully to this, and any of you in recovery, I think this is kind of an interesting observation I've noticed. I have noticed that people with addiction, there's all this talk about stigma and addiction. I have never met an addict, alcoholic that is worried about stigma. They're worried about using drugs and drinking. That's all they're worried about. Stigma is always something that family brings up. They are freaked out about stigma all the time. And so I'm wondering, Beth, if you're running into stigma. I think now that you might run into some issues with your sober peers around talking in the media about your recovery, right? There was a prohibition against that, the 11th tradition. Bob Forrest and I did a deep dive into that 11th tradition, and we found that it was something generated by Bill W.'s wife, and that towards the end of her life, she really was thinking that, this is apparently well documented, this is Bob teaching me, that she started thinking that it was important to get out in the media, not to promote, but to educate, and to not use, think about brands and not doing anything with it other than educating about the fact that recovery is there, then it works, and how to get access to it. So I would argue what you're doing on social media, Beth, is extremely valuable. So thank you for doing that. Okay, let me look, guys. You guys are asking me good questions. Um, SAMHSA Prevention Day, CADCA. Good. I'm all for that stuff. I used to be part of CADCA. I love their organization. I got myself in trouble by uh, stating that the California Medical Society was supporting medical marijuana, and I said I support whatever my medical society supports, and that became a real problem for them. So I still support them at CADCA. Okay, let me get you. Whoop, I got to go the other way. And you guys have been scrolling by really fast. I appreciate you jumping on board. Again, to kind of recap, yeah, Jesse, a lot of families feel it reflects negatively on them. Yeah, they feel responsible for the addiction, right? Which is, when I hear somebody say that, here's what I think: go to Al-Anon. Stop worrying about stigma. Go to Al-Anon. That's almost a sign that the family's not involved enough in Al-Anon. So maybe get your family kind of, geared up in that way. Get them into the Al-Anon program, which is where they should be. How do I feel about Suboxone? That's Brizey. So I'm not a super fan of Suboxone. I worry about the excessive enthusiasm that Suboxone has been promoted by. Everyone's got to use it, and doctors have prescribed 250 patients. I have applied for a waiver so I can use it. It's going to be necessary for homeless populations. Those are not people that are going to be candidates for sobriety. I work in sobriety. I work in complete abstinence sobriety. That's what I like doing. But there is a place for Suboxone. So, and it can save lives too. Let's be clear about that. I'm a fan of naltrexone, both the shots, implantable, whatever it might be. I'm a big fan of naltrexone. Uh, Dan Roberts, I didn't see your comment. I didn't see it. Do I know anything about? Do you go? I don't know. Do you go alone? I'm not getting some of your questions. Thank you, Ricky. Yes, ask about Al-Anon, of course. Please do. And Jesse, you can talk about Suboxone. I'm sure you're one of the people that it's helped. How much are you on Suboxone? Because I think there's a big difference between somebody on 16 milligrams and somebody on 2 milligrams. It's a very different phenomenon. Kratom, I had the Bell brothers in there to talk about Kratom. I worry about it like crazy. It's a weak opiate, so it has to be difficult, problematic for people with opiate addiction. Okay. Suboxone is good for chronic pain. Yes, I know, Wolfman. And when I took my waiver program, they pointed out that Suboxone can be excellent for chronic pain. And that's a zone in which the Suboxone should be used much more frequently than it is, much more. It is not nearly as dangerous as the other medicines, and it showed more efficacy. Why wouldn't we use it? It's so stupid when we do stuff like that. When we have data that shows it's the right thing to do, and then we don't do it. That's beyond for me. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm just reading. Do I use naltrexone for a period of time or just when you want to drink? Well, there's different uses of naltrexone. I did a whole podcast on this for alcoholics. Some alcoholics have a very, very powerful response to naltrexone, and that is up to you and your doctor. You might be on that for long term. What I'm a real enthusiast for naltrexone, though, is with opiate addiction. That's when I think it has its greatest efficacy. So there you go. Okay. Will VA hospitals ever prescribe CBD oil or CBD? That's a really interesting question. I don't know. CBD has some efficacy and some use. I had one patient, really serious joint problem in her ankle, had a really strong response with CBD. Oh, that's an interesting question, John. He says, what do I think about someone in good health taking naloxone to purposely throw themselves into precipitated withdrawal? That used to be called, we had a name for that. They used to put people under anesthesia and then do that. It was not good. First of all, people were usually not just on opiates, and they didn't tell the doctor that. And secondly, it left a residual of 3 or 4 days. You might as well just go through opiate withdrawal. So I really was not a fan of that. It was called rapid opiate detox back in the day. I was not a fan. I just saw a lot of residual from that. And by the way, people were in 2 weeks of benzodiazepine withdrawal and 5 days of still residual opiate withdrawal were very confused. It was really not a good thing in what I saw. I know some people had some good success with it. So CBD dosing, low dose, everybody. Keep it low, under 200 milligrams. And there are side effects, right? Like anything. And I know my wife and I tried it, and she got panic attacks the next day, and I had disturbed sleeps. So, but other people I know and patients have used it with great efficacy. Thank you, Lizette. You're learning a lot tonight. That's good. Blessed, best blood pressure. I was 40 something years old, and I was going in every year for physical and every year up. So I ran more and watched my diet more, and my blood pressure kept creeping up. And finally, a wise doctor looked at me and said, Drew, you can only outrun your genetics so long. Blood hypertension in a non-obese setting, but by the way, not all obese people have high blood pressure. It's actually kind of uncommon, but they have it. And for some people, it really makes a difference, their weight, but that's not everybody. For me, it was clearly making no difference. For most people, hypertension, essential hypertension as it's called, is a miscommunication between the top of the heart and the kidney. It's a hormonal communication that genetically goes off as you age in certain people. And there's only way to set that back is with medication. And I've been on medicines ever since, and I don't know I'm taking them. Zero side effect. Low dose naltrexone for chronic pain and autoimmune disease. That's a kind of a sophisticated use of it. I've not been involved with anything like that. How do I feel about low dose naltrexone? I'm generally a fan of naltrexone. I see there's almost no downside other than opiate exposure from naltrexone. Okay. I used the tincture on my extremities, itchy feet fungus, and it was gone the next day. Wow, CBD on a fungus. That's interesting, Jessica. Weight was for me almost atrial fibrillation too. What do you mean it was Baltimore guy, almost atrial fibrillation? I'm not sure what that means. You either have atrial fib or you don't. Okay. What are your thoughts on Vivitrol, which is naltrexone? That's what we've been talking about. Managing recovery from heroin addiction, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of naltrexone. The problem is, if you're on a naltrexone program and not a Suboxone program, you have to be in a rigorous, structured recovery program. There has to be regular contact with your recovering team, because the biggest problem with naltrexone is people are lost to follow-up. And you know what that means. People want to use, they stop coming back for naltrexone, go use. Which, that's a problem with everything, let's be fair. Yes, I'm reading questions from Periscope, Facebook, Mixer, everything here. Periscope. I get this Restream. It shows me all the platforms where we're out. So thank you for that. It's Periscope, Facebook, Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, everywhere. So thank you for that. Am I traveling with my wife? No, she's going to New Orleans. You can find her there. Wait a minute. I always like to talk to these guys. Where'd he go? Oh, shoot. I can see. Wait a minute. This is interesting. You're going to tell me what you mean by this, because I can see Dr. Drew is about his big pharmaceutical dollars. Exactly what are you talking about? Tell me precisely what dollars, where I'm getting them, and what pharmaceutical company. I would love to hear that. That would be fantastic. Do you mean CBD? You mean the cannabis industry? I do run a CBD ad on some of my programs, so we can keep paying for these things. But I do not have any relationship with any pharmaceutical companies that I can think of. So please tell me where I'm getting that. Long-term benzo for dystonia spasm, titrating significantly. Any advice for comfort? Get down to the lowest level you possibly can. You might try something like Xanaflex or Robaxin to kind of deal with some of those spasms. I'm sure you have. Am I running for office? No, I'm not running for office. I've made that very, very clear. Oh, you're talking about TheraWorks? TheraWorks is not a pharmaceutical product. It's a topical agent that affects blood flow into your muscles and prevents cramps. It's actually one of the reasons I got excited about TheraWorks. So here's the things I am working on. TheraWorks affects blood flow and prevents cramps, so you don't have to use medication. To distraction by patients, particularly older patients that come in begging for medicine to deal with muscle cramps. Here is a topical agent that just affects blood flow and gets rid of cramps. And my wife uses it all the time for muscle and joint problems too. So I am a fan of TheraWorks. Number two, I work with a needle destruction device, which is I think it's going to revolutionize our problem with needles. So these are two things I am behind, and it has nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. So Phentermine is a type of pharmaceutical speed. That is true. Please be careful with that. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back up in case I missed. I'm not at Los Encinas any longer. I'm sorry. I've left there a few years ago. Uh, Marcus. Let's see. Let's see. Uh, how to make social anxiety go away. You know, social anxiety can be disabling. I had a bit of it. You know, I have lots of anxiety of all types, and social anxiety was something that still have, frankly. I would argue that exposure therapy really helps with that. So go out and put yourself out there and get some skill. It's not going to be comfortable. And exposure therapies, you know, we live in a day when people get triggered and then you're withdrawn from the stimulus. Well, the way we deal with mental health stimuli that we find unpleasant, like phobias, is exposure. It's the opposite of what we're doing today. So don't do what is the common thing, which is I'm triggered, I have to withdraw. Exposure is what makes us better and stronger. Okay. Latuda, I've not had great experience with, I must tell you. Let me go back down to the bottom. Klonopin saved my life. Okay, Peggy, that's nice. I, by the way, was completely mismanaged in terms of my depression and anxiety. I wish I'd had the right medication at the time. I suffered for years because people mismanaged me so badly. And again, I think that's why I got interested in trying to help particularly young people. Uh, North Carolina, Bridget, nice. Duloxetine you're asking about. You want to know about herpes simplex treatments. I think there will be a vaccine for that before there will be a curative treatment. Do I have any books to help myself with my PTSD? Waking the Tiger. That's a trauma book I talked about, I think, last week. Look at Waking the Tiger. It's a very good book on trauma. And like the alcoholic addict, we get when they're there. Trust in God to help them. Okay. Al-Anon will be there when they're ready. God bless you. Well, encourage people to Al-Anon, I would say. Okay. I'm at 15 milligrams. When I get to 0 of methadone in the next few months, will I start withdrawing? No. When you're at 15 of methadone now, you should, yeah, minimal withdrawals. Usually when people get below 20, they start having withdrawal with the methadone. And as you get below 10, it can get pretty intense and it can last for quite some time. So prepare for that. In fact, I would urge you, methadone withdrawal is horrible. And I would urge you to see a doctor who knows how to switch you to Suboxone. That's an appropriate use of Suboxone. Suboxone taper is a much easier deal than don't taper. Bioidentical hormone replacement therapy before menopause. Well, it's not so much joy before menopause. In perimenopause, it can be really important. And unfortunately, doctors don't think about any hormone replacement and they jump right to antidepressant medicines and things like that. We did a couple of podcasts with Dr. Gary Donovan on this. He was very encyclopedic in his review of the problem. I support what he's doing. I think he's on it. I think one of the keys is to make sure you're on adequate doses of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. That has a significant effect for women. Fearful of exposure therapy for my escalator phobia. Yeah, that's part of a phobia is you're fearful of your stimulus, and so you got to get into it. Uh-oh. Well, again, Mrs. Pinsky she has some notes maybe for us. Let's see. She's always our producer. Oh, yeah. Yeah. She is reminding me that although we're talking about medical issue here during these streams, this is medical treatment. This is not replacing what your doctors are saying. This is education. This is me sort of riffing on topics that I know a bit about that I want to share and give back, but this does not in any way replace your treatment or subjugate what your doctors are telling you. It's just something you can take to your doctors and talk to them about. Bessel van der Kolk. Yeah, Body Keeps the Score. Sean, that is a great recommendation. Body Keeps the Score. Bessel van der Kolk is one of the leading voices in trauma and PTSD. He has been at the cutting edge forever. Body Keeps the Score. Thank you for that recommendation. That's another good one. Do I know about TMS for depression? Yes, again, we did several podcasts about it. Look at my website for the depression podcast. We get into it. It was about 2 months ago. We get into it in great detail. I'm a fan of TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. You put a magnet on your head and it stimulates the region of the brain associated with depression. It works rather well. Okay. What is one thing I wish I'd done differently over your career? The gentleman that was talking about pharmaceutical companies, that kind of thing, back early in the 80s, physicians routinely maintain relationships. We use pharmaceutical companies to build our educational programs. It was a cozy relationship. It was not right, and I wish I'd recognized that earlier. But I've had no relationship like that for 25 years. So we used to rely on them to fund educational programs, and that even that wasn't okay. So I used to argue that we need their money for the educational programs and also to get the free medication for our patients. They would give us free medicine. They never, in my opinion, influenced what I said or what I was prescribing, but still the data suggests otherwise. And the coziness of that, well, the opiate epidemic should tell you all you need to know. Am I worried about the novel coronavirus outbreak? I am not worried about the coronavirus. I'm worried about influenza. Wait a minute, what are you saying about Bessel van der Kolk? If you like Bessel van der Kolk's book, you might like Sebern Fisher's book on using neurofeedback in treatment of developmental trauma. Yeah, neurobiofeedback. The only problem with books like that is you have to go get the neurobiofeedback. While some of Bessel's books can really help you understand how your body's working and help you with some of the symptoms. Okay, let's get through this. Advice for someone with borderline personality disorder who has seen doctors for 12 years with seemingly no effect. Dialectical, I have 3 words for you. Dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, very good for people with borderline personality disorder. And it will be a great relief to you, I promise, if you do that, and even DBT groups. What size am I in jeans? 34, 33. Why, Jared? Why? What causes toes to feel numb? Sulo, I guess it's Suelo. Please tell me your age, because numbness in the toes is different at different ages. Are issues common? Are gut issues common after quitting opioid painkillers? Absolutely. All kinds of hyperactivity of the bowels. Be careful with that. How that's treated needs to be done by somebody who knows what they're doing. Here's Lizette says DBT is amazing, so it can be quite good. A phantom pain, is that no. Finally caught You Live, just saying hi. You Live Home. Hammett. Mm-hmm. How much do I usually agree with Adam Carolla? He claimed it was 95%. Okay. Adam insists that I do an improv with him when we're together, so I'm always saying yes and, not only that, but, so I can't say no. He forbids it. And when I do disagree or I have an emotional reaction to what he's saying, he becomes abusive, which makes me shut down even more. But I do believe he has an extraordinarily interesting view of the world in ways that I don't see sometimes. He calls it his crystal brain, and I consult his crystal brain many times. And so it's not that we agree 95% of the time, it's that I have respect for some of his opinions. Why concerned with influenza over coronavirus? Because thousands of people are dying from influenza. I believe it was 5,000. Somebody told me that it was 5,000 people this month, or it was something large number, while 300 people have died of coronavirus. Just look, influenza, get your flu shot. Get your flu shot. Okay. Myalgic encephalomyelitis. I know it's autoimmune disease. Do I have any opinion? Oh my goodness. I'm not a big fan of racetams. I've not seen anything really good with that, but somebody may have some good data on that. Okay, so I think that about does it, guys. I'm going to, oh boy, that's a long one. Let me just look at it. Oh boy. Meth, schizophrenia. Yeah, it's hard to know if it's meth or schizophrenia when people are doing meth. It's hard to get them to get into treatment. That's the big problem, and that's what I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to change the laws that can help you get your brother to treatment. That is a heartbreak, and it's ridiculous. Families with resources, with caring environments where they can take care of people and literally not being allowed to do so. That is not, no other country does that. It's ridiculous. Toes numb at random times. Wait, I want to get your toe numb thing. Random time, usually it can be, I didn't say how old you are. 47. Okay, so your toes can get numb as you're older just from a neuropathy, which we all kind of get eventually. If you're a runner, sometimes that neuropathy can come even earlier. Usually it's a toe numbness and is really kind of more of an entrapment thing, like something's pressing on the nerve, the sural nerve, or the nerve on the top of the foot that is caught. And it can, as you said, it can come in the back too, but I would not worry about it. Make sure your pulses are good in your feet and you're not a smoker. I think it's not going to be that big a deal. What do you say about could? Ooh, Obviously not a majority of cases. Same dose here for 6 years. I don't know what that was, Deborah. Um, what am I doing in Colorado? I'm working on Daily Blast Live, which is a daily kind of news entertainment show, and it's look at your local listing. I'll be tweeting it out. And Daily Blast Live is a lot of my friends from the HLN show, like Samantha's there doing it. And I'm here to support her, my old executive producer, and it's fun to come here and visit my friends and then do that show, which is a very good show, by the way. Doing EMDR, whoops, but don't feel like I'm making progress. Do I go forward? Please, Dave, stick with it. I hope you're with a skilled professional, but in skilled hands, very few people are resistant. I'm sure there are some, but most people that I've dealt with really works. Can't wait for me to be on your mom's house, Jared. I've got a date. We've got a lot to talk about when I go back on your mom's house. But those of you who don't know what we're talking about, please check out my podcast, Dr. Drew After Dark. Um, uh, I don't know how you keep up with everything, Noel. That's my job to do that. And I had lots of training and lots of experience, and that's kind of why I'm here. I mean, I used to work, 14, 16, 18 hours a day for literally decades. And so as a result, I had just ridiculous exposure to so much medical and psychiatric material and sort of made myself pretty good at all that stuff. And now I just want to share it back the best I can. Okay, so here I am in Denver. I'm in Denver. It's the middle of a snowstorm, and I've got to kind of get back to things. I appreciate you guys sort of joining me on these streams. I'm not sure how it's going to work tomorrow. I may have to miss tomorrow, but I will certainly try to get one done on Wednesday. And I'm glad this is our first on the road daily dose. I like the fact that my producer wife is texting into me and still participating in the show. You just don't hear her voice the way we normally do, but she'll be back on the show. I think this weekend we'll be doing a show. This producer, why don't you text me who the guest is likely to be this weekend? Do you know yet? On the Ask Dr. Drew show, we do that on Sundays at 3 o'clock Pacific, and that's a show you can call in on. I will say, Patty Raid, say hi to Susan she's listening, so she's watching, and I appreciate all your guys' support and great questions, and it's really a privilege to try to answer these questions and help make sense of these things for you. And anything else you want me to talk about? I mean, it doesn't always have to be medical stuff. If there's some personal stuff or whatever you want me to get into, we can. That's the beauty of being able to do streaming shows on a regular basis. We can get into all kinds of stuff. Why are so many people dying from overdose? It's not getting worse, it's getting better. However, they're not dying from pharmaceutical overdoses anymore, they're dying from fentanyl overdoses. And fentanyl is a very dangerous drug. And once an opiate addict graduates to fentanyl, there's a very high probability they're going to accidentally overdose. These are accidental overdoses, and it's because the drug is so damn powerful. So we might have, she's listening, see? We might have Kate Shanahan. So Vinnie Tortorich, the people I'm talking about, so-called cannabis chick, and Kate Shanahan. Kate Shanahan is the diet expert you can rely on. She wrote a book called Deep Nutrition. She's a physician and a biochemist. She knows what she's talking about. And my opening conversation with her was, she said, nutrition is so vastly complex, there's only a few things that we can reliably say anything about. And with that opening statement, I was willing to listen to her, because that's the fact. The nutrition is it's almost infinitely complex, and we know so very little about it. We can only say very little. So when people start making broad global claims about nutrition, be very circumspect. So we're looking at, what is Koala Puffs? Is that the cannabis chick? I'm looking at producer Susan's text to me. Vinnie Tortorich, Kate Shanahan, Koala Puffs. Did you mistext me? Here it comes. Hold on. Let's get her comments here. Hold on, guys. Oh, she's on a plane taking off going to New Orleans. So anyway, look out for next Sunday. It sounds like it's going to be a diet-heavy show, and that will be interesting for all of us. So appreciate you guys being there, and I'll see you probably Wednesday. I'll try tomorrow, though. We'll see.